The cluster had known peace for 3,000 years. 12 beautiful worlds floated in the golden light of twin suns. 6 alien species had built their civilizations here. They called themselves the Galactic Concordance. They traded with each other. They shared knowledge. They believed that war was a disease that only primitive species suffered from. They were wrong. Ambassador stood on the observation deck of the Concordance Central Station. She was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that shifted colors with her emotions. Right now, her skin was the gray color of deep fear. Through the massive window, she watched the refugee ships arriving. Thousands of them, millions of people fleeing from the outer worlds. The swarm had come. No one knew where they came from. They appeared at the edge of the cluster 6 months ago. At first, the Concordance sent diplomats. The diplomats never returned. Then they sent their fleet. The fleet was destroyed in 3 days. The swarm was not interested in talking. The swarm was hungry. Had seen the reports. They were like insects, but each one was the size of a small vehicle. They traveled in living ships made of flesh and bone. They did not conquer worlds. They ate them. Every plant, every animal, every person. They stripped planets down to bare rock and moved on. 3 worlds had already fallen. Billions of lives gone. The swarm was moving toward Prime now, the capital, the heart of everything the Concordance had built. And there was nothing anyone could do. "Ambassador," said a voice behind her. She turned to see Admiral, the military commander of the Concordance. He was short and wide with rocky skin and 6 eyes. All 6 eyes looked tired. "We have received the latest scout reports." "How long?" asked. 8 weeks, maybe less. The swarm is growing. They use the biomass from the worlds they consume to build more ships, more soldiers. His voice was flat. He had already accepted defeat. "Our remaining fleet cannot stop them. We have perhaps 200 ships. The swarm has. We stopped counting at 10 million. Skin flickered through several colors. Anger, despair, fear. There must be something we can do, some weapon, some ally. "We have contacted every species we know," said. "The Dominion refuses to get involved. The Trade Collective has already fled the sector. The Crystal Mines say this is not their concern." He paused. "There is one option we have not tried." "Who?" Hesitated. His rocky face showed something I'd never seen from him before, uncertainty. "The humans." The word hung in the air like a bad smell. Knew about humans. Everyone in the Concordance knew about humans, even though no one had ever met one. They lived far away, on the other side of the galaxy. The elder races had discovered them 200 years ago and immediately decided to leave them alone. The reports about humans were disturbing. They were a young species. They had only achieved space travel recently, but in their short history they had fought more wars than the Concordance had fought in 10,000 years. They fought each other constantly, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. They killed millions of their own kind and then rebuilt and did it again. The elder races called them dangerous, unstable, a species that would either destroy itself or become a threat to everyone else. "The humans are savages," said. "They know nothing but violence." "Yes," agreed. "That is exactly why I suggest we contact them." Stared at him. Slowly she understood. The Concordance had spent thousands of years learning peace. They had forgotten how to fight. Maybe that was their mistake. Maybe sometimes you needed someone who had never forgotten. "Do it," she said. "Send the message." The distress call went out that night. It traveled across the vast darkness between stars, carrying the desperate words of a dying civilization. "We are under attack. We cannot defend ourselves. Please help us." 3 weeks passed. The swarm consumed another world. Refugees continued to pour into Prime. The streets of the capital city were filled with frightened people from a dozen different species. Food was running short. Hope was running shorter. Stopped sleeping. She spent her nights on the observation deck, watching the stars, waiting for a response that might never come. On the 22nd night, her assistant rushed in with wide eyes. "Ambassador, a ship has arrived." Ran to the sensor station. Her hearts were pounding in her chest. A ship, rescue, hope. Then she saw the data, and hope turned to confusion. One ship. Just one. It had dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. It was not big by concordant standards. Their battle cruisers were larger, but there was something strange about it. The sensors could not get a clear reading. The ship was dense, impossibly dense, packed with systems and weapons that the computers could not identify. "One ship," said, standing beside her. His voice was hollow. "We asked for help against a swarm of millions and they sent one ship." "Maybe it is a scout," said. "Maybe more are coming." "Maybe," said. He did not sound convinced. The ship moved toward them slowly. It made no attempt to communicate at first. It just came closer, as if it was studying them, judging them. Finally, after an hour of waiting, a signal came through. "This is Captain of the United Earth ship Prometheus. We received your distress call. Please transmit tactical data on the hostile force." That was all. No greeting, no expressions of sympathy, no promises of salvation, just a request for information. Opened a channel. "Captain, this is Ambassador of the Galactic Concordance. We thank you for responding to our call, but I must ask, is this your entire force? Is more help coming?" There was a pause. Then the human voice came back and could hear something strange in it. Amusement, maybe, or confidence. It was hard to tell. "More help, Ambassador. You asked for military assistance. You got the Prometheus. That should be sufficient." "Captain, you do not understand. The enemy numbers in the millions. They have destroyed our entire fleet. They have consumed 3 worlds. One ship cannot possibly." "Ambassador." The voice was patient now, like a teacher speaking to a confused child. "Transmit the tactical data. Let me worry about what one ship can or cannot do." Looked back at her. Neither of them knew what to say. Finally, transmitted the data. Everything they had. The size of the swarm. The location of their forces. The defensive capabilities of the remaining concordant ships. The projected timeline for the attack on Prime. The human was silent for a long time, reviewing the information. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. There was something sharp in it now, something hungry. "Interesting," Captain said. "Where is the enemy's forward position?" "The system," answered. 3 jumps from here. But Captain, I must warn you, the Vanguard alone numbers in the tens of thousands." "Good," the human said. "I'm on my way out." The channel closed. Watched the strange human ship turn and accelerate toward the jump point. It moved faster than any ship she had ever seen. Within minutes, it was gone. "What have we done?" she whispered. Had no answer. He just stood there, watching the empty space where the Prometheus had been. Far away in the system, the swarm felt a new presence enter their hunting ground. 10,000 ships turned their attention toward it. They saw a small metal thing, alone and vulnerable. The Swarm Queen gave her orders, "Consume it." The Vanguard moved to attack. They had no idea what was coming for them. Captain sat in her command chair and studied the tactical display. Around her, the bridge of the Prometheus hummed with quiet activity. Crew members worked at their stations with the calm efficiency of people who had done this many times before. Was 53 years old. Her hair was gray, cut short for practicality. A scar ran down the left side of her face from her forehead to her jaw. She had earned that scar 15 years ago during the Mars Rebellion. She had earned many things during that war: experience, nightmares, a deep understanding of what humans were capable of doing to each other. Now she was going to show the galaxy what humans could do to someone else. "Commander Park," she said to her first officer, "status report." Park was a young man with sharp eyes and steady hands. He had never seen real combat before this mission. That would change soon. "All systems operational, Captain. Weapons charged. shields at full power. We will arrive at the system in 4 hours. The crew. Ready and eager, ma'am. Word has spread about the enemy. Everyone wants a piece of this fight. Nodded, that was good. Morale mattered in battle. Make sure they eat and rest before we arrive. This is going to be a long day. She turned back to the display. The data from the concordance showed her everything she needed to know. The swarm was large, yes, larger than anything humanity had faced before, but had been fighting wars since she was 18 years old. She had learned one important truth in all those years. Size did not matter as much as people thought. Courage mattered, training mattered. The willingness to keep fighting when everything was burning around you, that mattered most of all. The Prometheus had all of those things. 4 hours later, the ship dropped out of hyperspace in the system, looked at the main screen and felt her heartbeat quicken, not from fear, from excitement. The swarm was beautiful in a terrible way. Thousands of organic ships floated in the darkness, each one a living creature. They were shaped like insects with hard shells and many legs. Some were small, barely larger than fighters. Others were massive, the size of concordance cruisers. All of them were hungry. Contact, Park reported. Enemy ships are changing course. They have detected us. How many? Approximately 10,000, Captain. More emerging from the debris field around the fourth planet. 10,000, smiled slightly. She had faced worse odds during the siege of Europa. Her ship had been smaller then and she had still won. Begin tactical analysis. Find their command ships. Every swarm has leaders. The crew worked quickly. On the display, the enemy fleet was marked with red icons. They were spreading out, surrounding the Prometheus from all directions. Classic predator behavior. They thought they had found easy prey. They were wrong. Analysis complete, Park said. We have identified 12 larger organisms that appear to be coordinating the smaller ones. Destroying them should disrupt enemy formations. Should, repeated. We will find out. Navigation, plot an attack vector through the center of their formation. Weapons, prepare all forward batteries. We are going straight through them. The bridge was silent for a moment, straight through 10,000 enemy ships. It sounded like madness, but no one questioned the order. They trusted their captain. They trusted their ship. The Prometheus surged forward. The swarm attacked. Thousands of small creatures launched themselves at the human vessel. They were fast, faster than concordance fighters. They spat acid and rammed themselves into the ship's hull, trying to crack it open like a nut. The point defense systems activated. The Prometheus had been built for war, not the elegant, careful conflicts that the concordance remembered. Real war, dirty war, human war. Every surface of the ship bristled with weapons. Automatic guns that could fire thousands of rounds per minute. Laser arrays that swept across the void like burning fingers. Missile pods that spat death in all directions. The first wave of attackers died in seconds. They flew into a wall of fire and ceased to exist. Their bodies tumbled through space, leaking strange fluids, already forgotten by the guns that had killed them. More came, there were always more. Watched the battle unfold with cold eyes. She had seen this before. In every war, there was a moment when the enemy realized they had made a mistake. That moment was coming. Main batteries target the nearest command ship. Fire when ready. The Prometheus carried weapons that the concordance had never imagined. The main guns were magnetic accelerators that hurled projectiles at a fraction of the speed of light. Each projectile was the size of a small vehicle and weighed several tons. When they hit something, they did not just damage it. They deleted it from existence. The first command ship exploded. The projectile passed through it so fast that the creature did not have time to feel pain. One moment it was alive. The next moment it was an expanding cloud of meat and bone fragments. The swarm felt the death of their leader. For a brief instant, thousands of creatures hesitated, confused. In that instant, the Prometheus killed 300 more of them. "Target the next command ship," ordered, "and the next. Keep firing until they are all dead." The battle became a slaughter. The swarm had never faced anything like this. They were used to overwhelming their enemies with numbers. They were used to enemies who ran away, who tried to escape, who begged for mercy. The Prometheus did none of those things. It kept coming, guns blazing, cutting a path of destruction through the heart of the swarm. Commander Park watched the casualty reports with amazement. The enemy was losing ships by the hundreds, by the thousands. The Prometheus was taking damage too, but the armor held, the shields held, the crew held. "Captain," Park said, "enemy formations are breaking. They are attempting to retreat." Leaned forward. This was the moment she had been waiting for. "Do not let them, all ahead full, pursue and destroy." The Prometheus chased the fleeing swarm across the system. It was not a battle anymore. It was a hunt. The human ship was faster, stronger, and far more deadly than anything the swarm had encountered before. Creatures that had consumed entire worlds died screaming in the void, killed by a species they had never even heard of. 6 hours after the battle began, it ended. Stood on the bridge and looked at the final numbers. 10,000 enemy ships destroyed. The Prometheus had suffered moderate damage. 17 crew members were dead. 43 were wounded. It was a price, but it was a price that humans had always been willing to pay. "Send a message to the Concordance," she said. "Tell them the Vanguard has been eliminated." Park hesitated. "Captain, should we request reinforcements? The main swarm is still out there. Our intelligence suggests they have 50 million ships." "I know," said. "We will deal with them when they arrive." "With one ship." Looked at her first officer. Park was young. He had grown up in peacetime. He did not understand yet. "Commander, the Prometheus is not just a ship. It is a message. Today the swarm learned that humans exist. Tomorrow they will learn to fear us. That fear is worth more than 1,000 ships." She turned back to the display. In the distance, the remains of the enemy fleet drifted like garbage on a dark ocean. "Begin repairs, reload all ammunition, and find out where the main swarm is gathering. I want to know everything about their queen." Far away in the depths of space, the swarm queen felt the death of her vanguard. 10,000 of her children gone in hours. It should have been impossible. Nothing had ever hurt the swarm like this. She reached out with her vast mind, touching the memories of the few survivors. She saw the human ship. She saw its weapons. She saw the creatures inside it, small and soft and yet somehow terrible. For the first time in her ancient life, the queen felt something unfamiliar. Curiosity. What were these humans? Where did they come from? Why did they fight with such terrible joy? She had to know, she had to taste them, she had to understand. The queen gave new orders to her swarm. Forget the other worlds, forget the easy prey, find the humans, find their ship, bring them to her. 50 million ships began to move. On the Prometheus, received the sensor reports and smiled. The enemy was coming to her. Good, that would save her the trouble of hunting them down. She opened a channel to the Concordance. "Ambassador, this is Captain. You might want to start preparing your people for what comes next. The real fight is about to begin." The news of the human victory spread across the cluster like fire. 10,000 swarm ships destroyed. One human vessel. No retreat. No mercy. Ambassador listened to the reports and did not know how to feel. Relief, yes. The swarm had been stopped, even if only temporarily. But there was something else too. A cold feeling in her stomach, a sense that she had invited something dangerous into her home. She requested permission to visit the Prometheus. Captain agreed. The shuttle docked with the human ship 3 days after the battle, stepped through the airlock and into another world. The first thing she noticed was the smell, metal and oil and something sharp like burnt air. The Concordance ship smelled of flowers and clean water. They were designed to be pleasant. The Prometheus was not designed to be pleasant. It was designed to kill. A human officer met her at the dock. He was young, with dark skin and serious eyes. "Ambassador, I am Commander Park. The captain is waiting for you on the bridge." Followed him through the corridors of the ship. She had 4 eyes and she used all of them. She wanted to understand these humans. She needed to understand them. The walls were gray metal marked with scratches and dents. Some of the marks looked old. Others were fresh from the recent battle. Repair crews worked everywhere, welding plates, replacing cables, fixing the damage the swarm had done. They worked quickly and efficiently, but they did not look stressed. They looked comfortable, like this was normal for them. They passed a large room filled with weapons. Guns of many sizes hung on the walls, stopped and stared. She had never seen so many instruments of death in one place. "Your armory," she said. "One of them," Park replied. "We have 6. 6 armories on one ship." Skin turned pale gray. They continued walking. They passed a memorial wall, stopped again. The wall was covered with names and dates, thousands of names, hundreds of dates. "What is this?" she asked. Park's voice was quiet. "Our fallen, everyone who has died serving on human warships, we remember them." Looked at the dates. They went back centuries, wars she had never heard of, conflicts that had shaped humanity's history, the Mars Rebellion, the Belt Wars, the Pacific Campaign, the European collapse, on, an endless list of violence. "You have been fighting for a very long time," she said. "Yes," Park agreed, "we have." They reached the bridge. It was smaller than expected, packed with equipment and crew members. At the center sat Captain, watching a dozen displays at once. Stood when entered. She was shorter than, but somehow she seemed larger. There was a weight to her presence, a gravity that pulled attention toward her. "Ambassador, welcome aboard." Captain tried to keep her voice steady. "I wanted to thank you personally for what you did. You saved millions of lives." "Not yet," said. "The vanguard was nothing. The main swarm is still coming. 50 million ships, that is the real battle." 50 million. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. Skin flickered through several colors before settling on a deep blue. Fear. "How can you possibly fight 50 million ships?" Smiled. It was not a warm smile. "The same way we fought the vanguard. The same way humans have always fought. We adapt. We endure. We refuse to die." She gestured to a chair, sat down, her 4 arms folded nervously. "Ambassador, can I tell you something about my species?" Nodded. "Humans have been killing each other since before we could write. We fought with rocks and sticks. We fought with swords and spears. We fought with guns and bombs and weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single flash." His voice was calm, almost gentle. "We have fought over land, over resources, over ideas, over things so stupid that we forgot what they were before the war even ended. We have killed billions of our own kind." She leaned forward. "Do you know what that means?" Shook her head. "It means we have had a lot of practice." The captain stood and walked to the main display. It showed the approaching swarm, a red cloud of death spreading across the stars. "The Concordance stopped fighting thousands of years ago. You built a beautiful civilization, art, music, philosophy, but you forgot something important. The universe does not care about beauty. The universe is full of things that want to eat you, and if you cannot fight back, you will be eaten." Felt anger rising in her chest. "We are not savages. We evolved beyond violence." "No," said softly. "You did not evolve beyond violence. You hid from it. There is a difference." She turned to face. "I am not criticizing you, Ambassador. I am explaining something. The swarm is not going to stop because you ask nicely. They are not going to negotiate. They are not going to show mercy. The only language they understand is force. And lucky for you, humans speak that language fluently." Was silent for a long moment. Finally, she asked the question that had been burning in her mind since she came aboard. "Why did you come? You owe us nothing. We have never even met your species before. Why risk your lives for strangers?" Looked at her. For a moment her hard face softened. Because someone asked for help. Because there are children on those refugee ships who deserve to grow up. Because the swarm is wrong and someone needs to stop them. She paused. And because this is what we do. This is who we are. She smiled again, and this time it was almost warm. Humans are complicated, Ambassador. We can be cruel and selfish and destructive, but we can also be brave and generous and stubborn. When we see something that needs to be done, we do it. Even if it is hard, even if it hurts, even if we might not survive. An alarm sounded. Both women turned to the display. A new contact had appeared, then another, then thousands more. "The main swarm," Park reported. "They are ahead of schedule. Estimated arrival 12 hours. Nodded calmly. "Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat." She looked at. "Ambassador, you should return to your people. Tell them what you have seen here. Tell them that the Prometheus will buy them time. And tell them to get ready, because when this is over, win or lose, the galaxy is going to be different." Stood, her legs felt weak. "Captain, will you survive?" Considered the question. Maybe, maybe not. Either way, the swarm will remember this day. They will remember that one human ship stood against their entire force, and they will learn something that the Concordance forgot. What is that? That some prey fights back. Returned to her shuttle. As it pulled away from the Prometheus, she watched the human ship preparing for battle. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. The small vessel seemed to grow larger somehow, as if it was drawing strength from the approaching enemy. Behind her, the swarm arrived like a wave of darkness, blotting out the stars. And the Prometheus moved forward to meet them. Alone. Closed her eyes and prayed to God she had not believed in for centuries. Please, she thought, please let them win. Please let these strange, violent, beautiful creatures show us how to survive. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain watched the enemy approach. 50 million ships, more enemies than any human had ever faced. She smiled. "This," she said to no one in particular, "is going to be fun." Ambassador gathered the leaders of the Concordance in the great chamber on Prime. Representatives from all 6 species sat around the ancient table. They were frightened. They were desperate. They were looking for hope. Gave them what she had found on the human ship. Not hope exactly, something stranger, something harder. "The humans will not save us," she said. "They will teach us to save ourselves." The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Admiral raised a rocky hand for silence. "Explain, Ambassador." "I spent 6 hours on the Prometheus. I spoke with Captain. I learned things that disturbed me deeply, but I also learned things that might save our civilization." She activated a holographic display. It showed images from the human ship, the armories, the memorial walls, the damaged corridors being repaired. Humans are not like us. They have been at war with each other for their entire history. They have killed billions of their own kind. They have built weapons that can destroy worlds. They are, by any measure we use, a violent and dangerous species. "Then why did you invite them here?" demanded Vex, a thin creature from the third world. "They will destroy us after they destroy the swarm." "No," said firmly. "They will not, because I also learned something else about humans. They are loyal. When they make a promise, they keep it. When they call someone a friend, they mean it. And right now, they consider us friends." She changed the display. Now it showed tactical diagrams, battle formations, weapon specifications. "Captain offered to teach us how to fight. Real fighting, human fighting. She says our fleet is not useless, it is just being used wrong." Admiral leaned forward with interest. "What does she mean?" "Our ships are designed for show, for ceremony, for the occasional small conflict that we settled with careful duels. The swarm does not fight duels, they fight wars, and so do humans." Pulled up a recording. His voice filled the chamber. "Your ships have weapons, Not great weapons, but weapons. Your crews know how to fly. You have numbers. What you lack is doctrine. You lack aggression. You lack the willingness to take damage in order to deal damage. I can teach you these things, but you have to be willing to learn." The recording ended. The chamber was silent. "She wants us to become like them," Vex said with disgust. "Savages." "She wants us to survive," replied. "There is a difference." The debate lasted 3 hours. Some leaders refused absolutely. Their people had not fought in generations. They did not know how. They would not learn. Others were curious, desperate, willing to try anything. In the end, they reached a decision. The Concordance fleet would gather near Prime. Captain would provide training. They would fight alongside the Prometheus when the swarm arrived. It was the only chance they had. The next few days were chaos. 200 Concordance ships gathered in orbit. Their captains reported to the Prometheus for training. What they learned there changed them forever. Captain was like, she had commanded her cruiser for 30 years. She had never fired her weapons in anger, not once. Met her in a training room aboard the Prometheus. The room was full of holographic displays showing simulated battles. Other Concordance captains sat at stations around the room, watching, learning. "Your ship has 12 laser batteries," said without introduction. "Why do you only fire them one at a time?" Blinked in confusion. "That is the protocol. We target one enemy, confirm destruction, then move to the next target. It is efficient." "It is slow," said, "and slow means dead. Watch." She activated a simulation. A Concordance cruiser faced 20 swarm ships. It followed standard protocol. One target at a time, careful aim, confirmed kills. It destroyed 7 enemies before the rest overwhelmed it. Reset the simulation. Now watch human doctrine. The same cruiser, the same enemies, but this time it fired all 12 batteries at once at 12 different targets. Half of them missed, half of them hit. 6 enemies died instantly. The cruiser kept moving, kept firing, dodging and weaving through the enemy formation. It destroyed all 20 enemies. It survived. "You are not trying to be perfect," explained. "You are trying to create chaos, kill fast, move fast, make the enemy react to you instead of the other way around. Accuracy matters less than aggression." Stared at the display. Everything she had learned in 30 years of service told her this was wrong, but the results told her something different. "How do you live like this?" she asked quietly. "Always fighting, always at war." His expression changed. For a moment she looked tired, old. "We do not live like this by choice, Captain. We live like this because we have to. The universe is not kind. It does not reward the gentle. It rewards the strong." She paused. "Your people tried to leave violence behind. It was a noble goal, but the violence found you anyway. Now you have 2 options. Learn to fight back or die." She turned to address all the Concordance captains. "I know this is hard. I know it goes against everything you believe. But I am not asking you to become monsters. I am asking you to protect your homes, your families, your children. That is not evil. That is love. And sometimes love means being willing to do terrible things." The training continued, day after day, hour after hour. The Concordance crews learned human tactics. They learned to fire without hesitation. They learned to take damage and keep fighting. They learned that survival was not about avoiding conflict but about winning it. Some captains broke. They could not handle it. They resigned their commands and went home to wait for death. But others grew stronger. They found something inside themselves they had not known existed, a will to fight, a refusal to surrender. On the 5th day, new sensor contacts appeared at the edge of the system. The main swarm had arrived. Captain stood on the bridge of the Prometheus and watched the enemy approach. 50 million ships. They filled the display like a spreading stain. Behind her, the Concordance fleet waited. 200 ships. It was nothing compared to the swarm, but it was something. She opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, this is Captain. The enemy is here. You know what to do, stay together, support each other, and remember what I taught you." She paused. When she spoke again, her voice was different, warmer. "I know you are scared, I am scared too. Only fools are not scared before battle, but fear does not have to control you. Use it. Let it sharpen your mind. Let it fuel your will. And when the enemy comes, show them what the Concordance can do." She closed the channel and turned to Commander Park. "Take us to the front. The Prometheus leads the attack." Park hesitated. "Captain, if we fall." "If we fall, the fleet continues the fight. That is why we trained them," smiled grimly. "But we are not going to fall, Commander. Not today, not against these creatures. They think they are the hunters. They are wrong." The Prometheus moved forward. Behind it, 200 Concordance ships followed. They were clumsy. They were inexperienced, but they were no longer helpless. The swarm saw them coming. 50 million ships began to move, spreading out like a living wave. At the center of the formation, hidden behind layers of defenders, the Swarm Queen waited. She had never lost a battle. She had consumed civilizations. She had eaten stars. Today, she would face something new. Today, she would face humanity. And she did not yet know what that meant. Captain looked at the approaching storm and felt her heart beating fast. This was the moment. This was why she existed. Not the killing, not the violence, but the chance to stand between the darkness and the light. "All hands," she said, "battle stations." The final fight had begun. The Battle of Prime began at dawn. The twin suns rose over the capital city, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. In orbit, 50 million swarm ships met 200 Concordance vessels and one human battleship. It should have been a massacre. It was, just not the one the swarm expected. Captain had spent 3 days planning this battle. She knew she could not win through force alone. The numbers were too great, but she also knew something the swarm did not. She knew how humans had won impossible battles throughout their history. Trick the enemy, divide the enemy, make the enemy destroy itself. The Prometheus drove straight into the heart of the swarm formation. It was not trying to kill every enemy ship. That was impossible. Instead, it was looking for something specific. The command links, the creatures that connected the Swarm Queen to her children. Every swarm had them. Kill enough of them and the hive mind would fragment. The creatures would become confused, disorganized, vulnerable. "Target identified," Park reported. "Command creature bearing 075, range 12,000 kilometers. All batteries fire." The Prometheus unleashed everything it had. Main guns roared. Missiles launched. Laser arrays carved burning lines through space. The command creature died before it understood what was happening. Around it, 10,000 lesser creatures lost their connection to the Queen. They stopped attacking in coordination. They began attacking randomly, even hitting each other in their confusion. "Target the next one," ordered. "Keep moving. Do not let them surround us." The battle became a hunt. The Prometheus tore through the swarm formation, killing command creatures one by one. Each death created more chaos. The organized attack began to fall apart. But there were so many of them. The Concordance fleet fought on the edges of the formation. They used the tactics had taught them: fire fast, move fast, support your allies. They were still clumsy, still inexperienced, but they were fighting, actually fighting, for the first time in thousands of years. Captain commanded her cruiser from the heart of the defensive line. Enemy creatures swarmed around her ship, clawing at the hull, trying to break through. Her gunners fired without pause, without mercy. Half of them were crying. All of them were still fighting. "Hold the line," she shouted. "Protect the civilians, do not let them through." Behind the Concordance fleet, refugee ships fled toward the far jump point. Millions of lives depending on the thin wall of ships that stood between them and the swarm. The wall held. Hour after hour the battle continued. The Prometheus took terrible damage. Decks collapsed. Systems failed. Crew members died at their stations. Commander Park took over the weapons station when the officer there was killed. He had never fired a weapon in his life before this month. Now he was killing enemies by the thousand. Never left her chair. She could not. If she showed any sign of weakness, the crew might break. So she sat there, covered in blood from a cut on her head, and gave orders in a calm voice while the ship burned around her. Status report. Park checked the displays. Hull integrity at 40%. Main batteries 2 and 3 are offline. We have lost contact with decks 7 through 12. Enemy losses estimated at. Captain, we have killed over 5 million of them. 5 million, and there were still 45 million left. But the swarm was hurting, could see it. The organized waves of attack had stopped. The creatures were fighting individually now, without coordination. They were still dangerous, but they were no longer an army. They were a mob. Where is the Queen? Sensors show a massive contact behind the main formation. She has not moved since the battle began. Nodded, the Queen was waiting, watching, trying to understand what was happening. That was her weakness. She had never lost before. She did not know how to react to failure. Navigation said, plot a course for the Queen, maximum speed. Park turned to stare at her. Captain, the ship cannot survive another direct assault. We are barely holding together as it is. I know, stood up. It hurt. Everything hurt. Commander, the Prometheus is not going to survive this battle. We knew that from the beginning, but we are not here to survive. We are here to win. She walked toward the main display, stepping over the body of a fallen officer. The Queen controls everything. If we kill her, the swarm dies. Not just this fleet. All of them. Every creature connected to her mind will become nothing more than animals. The galaxy will be safe. But Captain, I am not asking for permission, Commander. I am giving an order. She turned to face the bridge crew. They were wounded, exhausted, terrified. They were still at their stations. All hands, this is the captain. We are making a final run at the enemy Queen. We will not be coming back. Anyone who wishes to evacuate, do so now. No one will think less of you. No one moved. Felt something warm in her chest. Pride, maybe. Love. Very well, navigation, take us in. The Prometheus turned toward the swarm Queen. The remaining engines fired at full power. The damaged ship leaped forward, trailing smoke and debris, moving faster than it had any right to move. The swarm tried to stop them. Millions of creatures threw themselves at the human vessel. The point defense systems cut them down by the thousands, but more kept coming. The hull cracked. Air rushed into space. The lights flickered and died. Held onto her chair and watched the Queen grow larger on the display. She was beautiful in a horrible way. A creature the size of a small moon, covered in eyes and mouths and strange organs. The mind of the swarm. The hunger that had consumed worlds. All hands brace for impact. The Prometheus hit the Queen at full speed. The ship's armored nose punched through the creature's outer shell and buried itself deep inside. At the same moment, activated the ship's self-destruct. 12 antimatter charges detonated simultaneously. The Queen did not have time to scream. She simply ceased to exist. Her body vaporized. Her mind shattered. 50 million swarm creatures across the system felt her death and went insane with grief and confusion. On the Concordance ships, the crews watched in amazement as the enemy fleet fell apart. Creatures that had been attacking moments ago now drifted aimlessly, fighting each other, ramming into asteroids, doing nothing useful at all. Captain stared at the expanding cloud of debris where the Prometheus had been. Nothing remained. Nothing but fire and memory. They did it, she whispered. They actually did it. The Battle of Prime was over. The swarm was defeated. The cost had been terrible. Thousands of Concordance lives lost. Millions of swarm creatures dead. And one human ship gone forever. 3 months later, Ambassador stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Concordance Central Station. Through the window, she could see the memorial that had been erected in orbit, a statue of the Prometheus, carved from asteroid stone. Beneath it, the names of every crew member who had died. A new ship had arrived that morning. A human diplomatic vessel was preparing to meet the new ambassador. The door opened. A human woman walked in. She was young with dark hair and a warm smile. Nothing like captain, nothing like a warrior at all. Ambassador, I am Sarah. I am here to establish formal relations between Earth and the Concordance. Studied the human with all four eyes. You are very different from the last human I met. Laughed softly. Was a soldier, I am a diplomat, humans have both kinds. She paused. I heard what she did, what the Prometheus did, everyone on Earth heard. They are heroes now. Songs are being written about them. They saved us, said. They saved everything. Yes, smile faded slightly. That is what humans do. When we see something that needs saving, we save it, even if it costs us everything. Thought about that for a long moment. Finally, she asked the question that had been haunting her for months. What happens now? Your people have seen what we are, weak, helpless, unable to defend ourselves. What do you want from us? Looks surprised. Want from you? Ambassador, we do not want anything from you. We want to be your friends. We want to trade and talk and learn from each other. We want to build something together. She gestured toward the memorial outside the window. Died for your people, not because she wanted payment, because it was the right thing to do. She stepped closer and her eyes were serious now. Humans are not perfect. We have done terrible things to each other. We have wars in our past that shame us. But we also have this. When the darkness comes, we stand against it. When someone needs help, we help them. That is who we are. Felt tears forming in her eyes. She had not cried in decades. We were afraid of you before the swarm came. We thought you were monsters. We can be, admitted, but we can also be heroes. The choice is ours to make. She smiled again. Let us make good choices together, Ambassador. Let us build a future where no one has to be afraid. Outside the window, the memorial to the Prometheus floated in the starlight, a symbol of sacrifice, a promise of protection. Reached out with one of her hands, took it. Yes, the ambassador said, let us build that future together. And in the vast darkness between the stars, something new was beginning. A friendship between species, an alliance built on blood and hope. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy, not as conquerors but as protectors. The universe would never be the same.